We're all in pursuit of it, the ultimate immersive experience, the perfect game. But does the perfect game actually exist? Well, as a matter of fact, no. No, it doesn't. However, there are more than a few that get real close to this virtually unreachable ideal. Join us now as we take a look at what it is that goes into crafting the almost perfect game. Okay, so how about we start this one off with a checklist of things that would constitute the perfect game. Great gameplay. Let's be honest, how can a game be perfect if it doesn't have great gameplay? This has to be first. Then let's go with high replayability. The more you want to play a game over and over again, whether it be a multiplayer or single player game, the better. Next, let's go with an immersive world. This ties into the previous 2 points, but if you forget about what's going on in the world around you and are fully focused on your game, then it's gotta be right up there with the best. Next, interesting, memorable characters. If you don't relate to or care about the game's protagonists and antagonists, chances are you won't get too invested and move on to something more fulfilling. So gotta have this. Aha! No microtransactions. This is just a big no-no. The perfect game isn't looking to rip you off or appeal to your emotions, it's just there to entertain and enthrall you. No bugs or glitches. Now this is one reason the perfect game doesn't exist. But if it did, it wouldn't have any glitches, performance issues, or crashes of any kind. We can dream at least. A distinct identity. I'm not going to say amazing graphics because I don't really think these matter unless they somehow enhance the experience in a major way. But I will say the perfect game has a look and feel all its own. Awesome sound design. The best games generally tend to have the best soundtracks, and indeed without a good score and great sound effects, the perfect game wouldn't be perfect at all. Suitably challenging. The perfect game would most likely have different skill settings to choose from, but regardless, if a game is too easy, or even too hard, then it will either end up being boring or just plain frustrating. And finally, high customizability. The more you can mod a game and turn it into something of your own, the more perfect it is. Thus, the perfect game is, at least in theory, endlessly customizable. So I think this list of 10 ingredients pretty much encompasses everything we need to gauge how close a game is to being perfect, but is there anything else you would add? Let us know in the comments. Anyway, let's now take a look at some games that are close to perfect and use this list to help us evaluate them insofar as possible. Here we go. Say what you want about its graphics, but Minecraft is arguably about as close to a perfect game as it gets. It's an open world sandbox where you can explore and build to your heart's content. It's got a massive global community of 174 million players and counting, the soundtrack by Dan Rosenfeld aka C148 is spectacular, and on top of all this, it's the most modded game ever. If you head on over to CurseForge and navigate to Minecraft mods, you'll discover well in excess of 140,000 as of October 2023. That's absolutely insane. Okay, I'm sure some of these are minor mods or aren't all that great, but there's a huge selection of elements that you can add into the mix and customize to your heart's content. Minecraft's enduring quality is its endless customizability and replayability, immersive world, great soundtrack, and distinct identity. But beyond all this, it's a game that people of all ages can enjoy. Plus, you don't exactly need an insane rig or next-gen console to run Minecraft, so it's also highly accessible. It may have its limitations, but if you ask me, Minecraft's popularity is only set to increase over time, so it's pretty darn close to the perfect gaming experience. Alright, this one might be a bit contentious, especially considering its less than great launch, but as it stands, Cyberpunk 2077 has seen several improvements and is now finally, in its own right, close to a perfect game. Since the release of Update 2.0 and Phantom Liberty, many of the bugs and glitches that had plagued the game since its troubled release in December 2020 are now gone. Okay, I'll level with you here. Some players are still reporting problems since Update 2.0, and over on Metacritic, the user score for Phantom Liberty currently stands at 6.2 out of 10. Ouch. And the main issue? Players are still reporting bugs, and some can't even launch the game. That seriously sucks. But besides some lingering glitches, many fans say Cyberpunk 2077 is the best game they have ever played. You gotta admit, the visuals look incredible and the world is supremely immersive. In addition, Cyberpunk 2077 features some really engaging gameplay and arguably some of the most memorable characters ever, though Idris Elba and Keanu Reeves may be most of the reason for this. In any case, if Cyberpunk 2077 can finally patch its last set of bugs, then it may just be the closest thing to a perfect gaming experience ever. Believe it or not, Baldur's Gate 3 has a near-perfect score of 96% based on well over 300,000 reviews on Steam. Moreover, the user score on Metacritic is 8.9 out of 10 based on nearly 14,000 reviews. It really seems like Baldur's Gate 3 is the best game of 2023 and possibly one of the best games ever. I mean, what does it not have? Amazing graphics, expert voice acting, massive amounts of replayability, a fully immersive world, tons of classes to choose from, bare f***ing. It's practically an RPG fan's ultimate fantasy. Maybe you aren't a fan of turn-based combat, or perhaps inventory management is too innovating for you, and I'm sure many fans of the game too, but you gotta hand it to Larian. They've listened to their community and are quick to address bugs, and because they care so much about what their fanbase wants, they've managed to develop something really special here. Baldur's Gate 3 has such a deep and complex narrative, or rather set of intertwining narratives, and offers up near endless replayability on top of a substantial amount of game time. Most gamers have dubbed it a masterpiece in the genre and something that has raised the bar for CRPGs as a whole. Whichever way you slice it, Baldur's Gate 3 may indeed be just a few micrometers short of perfection. But what do you think? Be sure to let us know in the comments down below. There's just no way I couldn't include The Last of Us here. If there was ever a game that zoomed in on the human condition and picked it apart right before my very eyes, it has to be Naughty Dog's veritable masterwork, The Last of Us. Sure, it may not have the most original storyline, it's the standard pathogen infecting the populace trope followed by the end of modern civilization as we know it, but because The Last of Us focuses so intensely upon the complexities of the numerous human relationships present within the game, most notably Joel and Ellie, it really is just a cut above the rest. It's a zombie survival horror game with depth and character, and it really sucker punches you in the feels. The game's narrative and world draws you right in, and you're forced to deal with some extremely harrowing situations. The Last of Us isn't some teenage power fantasy, it's a gritty look at the realities of being a human who managed to survive the apocalypse and likely regrets it more often than not. There are few games that dare to go this deep, and I'd say that if you've played The Last of Us, you're almost certainly a better person for it. There's no doubt that the game is endlessly replayable if you don't mind traumatizing yourself over and over again like a masochist, and its gameplay, dialogue, characters, soundtrack, and distinct identity are all there in spades. Whether you believe it to be a perfect game or not, The Last of Us has to be among the best gaming experiences ever. I've been a fan of the franchise for years, but it's really hard to deny that God of War Ragnarok is something truly special. Kratos has been around in the world of gaming for ages, but his older, wiser, and slightly less rage-filled self is more relatable and compelling than his Greek persona. I'd actually say that both 2018's God of War and now God of War Ragnarok borrowed pretty heavily from the dynamic between Joel and Ellie in The Last of Us, and lo and behold, it worked like a charm. This is all the goodness and insane action you'd expect in a God of War game, but it has a storyline, dialogue, and character progression that really push it that much further into the masterpiece category. Kratos feels a lot more rounded out as a character, the environments are gorgeous, and it's great to be able to fight against the likes of Thor and Odin. However, many of the sections with Atreus do feel like they overstay their welcome, and many fans didn't really enjoy this aspect too much. If people play God of War, they want Kratos, and that's that. In spite of some annoying pacing issues and a couple of sections that are a bit lackluster, God of War Ragnarok is a phenomenal game and probably one of the best you'll ever play on the PS5. I think I might bang on a bit about it, but I have to say there are few games that I've played that are as fun and memorable as the original Half-Life, and I guess its remake Black Mesa. I can almost recall every level and part of the game in detail since I played it over and over again throughout the course of my life. Half-Life was the game that kinda kicked off the next generation of first-person shooters and technically birthed the massively successful Counter-Strike as well as Team Fortress 2 and even Portal. It's just so good that it spawned several related franchises that have proven to be massively successful. From the story to the protagonist and the overall setting to combat, there's virtually no other game that will ever top Half-Life. Personally, it's the closest thing to a perfect game I've ever played and something that I know for a fact I'll play again someday soon. Some stories are just worth experiencing more than once, and in my opinion, Half-Life is some of the most fun you can have while sitting in front of your PC. It really is that good. I'm sure there are several other games I could have mentioned here that are close to perfect, but these are some of the more notable ones I could think of. We'll probably never get the perfect game, but even if we keep getting the opportunity to play ones that are as good as those I just mentioned, then I'll sure be sticking around for the foreseeable future. And so ends another video, my friends. What title is the closest thing to a perfect game you've ever played? And are there any other ingredients required to make the perfect game? Let us know in the comments. Make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for daily gaming lore, analyses, opinions, and more. From me and the crew, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Later!